Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord. Welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. Today we have 3 cards to talk about: a new Produce SSR for Fuyuko, Support SSR for Mono, and Produce SR for Rinze. Keep in mind that Fuyuko and Mono are limited. They will not be returning once the banner is over. So if you want them, now's your chance. If you're a fan of Fuyuko, Vocal Stray Light, or you're a fan of Mono and Rainbow Illumine, this is a good banner to pull on for you. Starting things off, we have Fuyuko. In another bold move by Takayama, Fuyuko 5 is both the final piece for Stray Light 5, but it also makes it so every single card in the set was limited, and also don't have innate synergy with each other, as one is Dance, one is Visual, and one is Vocal. She's a pure Vocal card that focuses on buffing, bringing back Stray Light's original game plan of stacking a bunch of active buffs, then removing them for the sake of one giant appeal. Said appeal is her Memory, which has a potential Vocal 6.5 if everything goes according to plan. In a lot of ways, there are some fair comparisons to make between Fuyuko 5 and May 4, in terms of what they aim to accomplish by being on the team. The only issue is that Fuyuko herself is, for the most part, not that powerful, and hasn't really pushed the relative strength of Vocal Stray Light up much at all. While she's certainly a more on-brand Fuyuko card for the team, she only moderately increases your potential passive activations with her solid choices. She's good, but she's not mind-blowingly good. Her roles are Center, Buffer, and maybe kind of a revenge unit based on one of her passives, and I moderately recommend pulling for Fuyuko. Fuyuko's initial skill is a Vocal 3.5 appeal that raises your Vocal by 20% for 4 turns and 5% for 7 turns, that links into a Vocal 1.5 appeal. The max version of this skill is a Vocal 5.0 that raises your Vocal by 40% for 4 turns and 10% for 7 turns, and links into a Vocal 1.5 appeal. Fuyuko's 1-star passive is a Vocal 50% up that requires Fuyuko on your team, and has a 30% chance to activate 3 times. Her 2-star passive is a Vocal 75% up that requires the turn count to be 4 or earlier. This also has a 30% chance to activate 3 times, and also unlocks an additional Vocal plus 50 uncap. Her 3-star uncap is a Vocal plus 150, and her 4-star unlocks are first, a Vocal 120% up that requires your mental to be 49% or lower. This has a 20% chance to activate twice, and this also then unlocks a Vocal plus 100 uncap. Her Memory appeal when maxed out is a Vocal 20% buff for 10 turns that links into a Vocal max 3.5 appeal based on how many Vocal up buffs you had at the time and you remove all of them, and then a Vocal 3.0 maximum appeal that removes all of your active Dance and Visual buffs. So for these appeals, you would need to have 4 active Vocal buffs and a combination of 4 Dance and Visual active buffs to reach the highest amount of damage. For the support recommendations, this recommended setup offers you 2 potential Vocal tokens with either Kaho or Kiriko, and 2 mental tokens with Kogane or Mei. Vocal doesn't have a ton of Stray Light specific support for Fuyuko, so mingling Antika supports and Hokura for Revenge and Attention Up is a solid choice. For the alternatives, Choco and Rinze make a good Dance and Mental token duo, even if their appeals are less relevant for Stray Light. Tenka adds an alternate Visual token if you prefer high health over low health, while Natsuha is a solid supplement with other Hokura supports you choose, and Amana is just a good general support for Vocal teams. For the team recommendations, Vocal Stray Light with a slightly new coat of paint. The game plan is more or less the same, but now you have a Fuyuko with better passives associated with it. Your goal is to strengthen Asahi as much as you can while setting up for Mei's Memory appeal on turn 3. While Fuyuko herself doesn't do a ton for Mei, she helps buff up Asahi a fair bit. Your choice of additional Vocal units is up to you. Hokura is popular, alongside Nocchill at times, so cards like Kaho 5, for example. You may also include cards like Toga 2, potentially. I think there also are some arguments depending on what maybe Illumine cards you might want to run, but otherwise it's fairly open-ended. On to the grades. Fuyuko as a center, I would say, is somewhere between A and A+. The concept of this Memory appeal is solid enough, but the execution is where things get tricky. Being able to consistently have 4+ active buffs for Vocal, while also having a combination of Dance and Visual to equal 4 or more before using your Memory appeal is not the easiest thing in the world, especially when you rely on other win conditions for your team. It's good in a vacuum if you're building specifically around it, but it's very finicky in practice. As a unit, B+ to A+. Fuyuko's good, honest to goodness, but I'm worried that her strength isn't enough to really revitalize Vocal Stray Light. Her appeals are decent, but not awe-inspiring. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if you end up overriding her appeals in favor of appeals like the Vocal Mei support. She has a good assortment of passives for Stray Light, which gives her plenty of wiggle room, but it's still hard to say for certain how impactful she's going to be in the long run. Next up we have Mono. Mono's 11th support SSR has hit the scene, a visual card who ideally aims to raise all stats as much as she can, while also providing a fair bit of SP and stamina if you run alongside other Illuminate cards. Mono features a fairly solid 1-star passive while also boasting an incredibly strong, but inconsistent, 2-star passive that only requires Mono to be on stage to activate, at least in the case of one of them. Shame about the 5% activation chance, however. Though, Mono's 4-star appeal raises your passive activation chances by a flat 20% for a few turns. She's really neat, but a little clunky, all things considered. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, Rest Boost, and Unit Mastery Stamina, which actually reaches +3 at level 75. As for her other masteries, she has Unit Mastery SP reaching +8 at level 70, Visual Mastery SP reaching +8 at level 80, and then Visual Mastery Vocal and Visual Mastery Dance, both reaching +15 at level 80. Her support appeal does scale, starting at a Visual 3.0 out of the box, working its way up eventually to a 3.5 appeal at level 80. Her TFD idea is Visual, her Insight token for Grad is Vocal, and her proficiencies in Landing Point are in Visual and SP. Mono's 0-star appeal is a Visual 2.5 that raises your passive activation rate by 10% for 3 turns. Her 1-star passive is a Visual 50% up and Vocal Dance 30% up that requires a turn count to be 3 or earlier. This has a 20% chance to activate twice. This also unlocks a Mental +50 uncap. Her 2-star passive is a Visual 120% up and Vocal Dance 60% up that requires Mono on your team. This has a 5% chance to activate twice. Her 3-star uncap is a Visual +100, and her 4-star appeal is a Visual 3.5 that raises your passive activation rate by 20% for 3 turns and also unlocks a Visual +50 uncap. Mono gets somewhere between an A and an S-. Mono is kind of an interesting case because she's a card that will either age gracefully with the advent of more Illuminate cards that complement her, or wither away because 5% activation chances for a big passive like hers is way too much of a pain in the ass to do 100+ runs to make activate. Her appeal itself isn't even that powerful to really account for this, and I don't envision many teams taking up a skill slot just to have 20% more odds to use her passives. There are some teams we've been seeing that are popping up with this build specifically in mind, but it is incredibly tricky and super awkward, as it is a full limited Illuminate team trying its best to utilize this card. Her masteries are really solid for budding Rainbow teams, but trying to utilize the gold passive might be a bit of a stretch for now. We're going to have to see if this card ages, like I said, well, if they get more support to make this playstyle much more valuable, or if it's just going to remain something that only a select few are willing to really try. I moderately recommend pulling for Mono, but it is totally up to you. Lastly, we have Rinze. Our event SR this go around is Rinze, a visual vocal unit who goes back to basics with her gameplay. She buffs your vocal or visual depending on the appeal you use, raises your attention a tiny bit, and can potentially link into a little extra damage if need be. Her gold passive is a one-time boost to your memory gauge, though only being 10% is a bit of a bummer. She lost the double uncap we saw with Kogane for some reason. I don't know, this Rinze definitely feels like they wanted to just tell a softer, simpler story and needed to attach it to a card, rather than design the card to really do much of anything. There are a plethora of different Rinze cards that accomplish what this Rinze wants to do, but better, and is certainly not a staple for any team going forward. Farm your 5 copies to unlock the costume if you like the look of this Rinze, and let her rest in the box. That sleepy sheep of her. Her rolls are buffer and attention up, and you might as well farm for Rinze while she's here. Rinze's initial skill is a Visual 2.0 appeal that raises your visual by 20% for 3 turns and attention by 30% for 3 turns, and links into a Visual 3.0. The max version of this skill is a Vocal 3.0 that raises your vocal by 40% for 3 turns and attention by 30% for 3 turns. This links into a Vocal 3.0. Her 1-star passive is a Visual 12% up that requires your mental to be 75% or higher and has a 40% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a memory gauge 10% boost that requires the turn count to be 2 or earlier. This has a 20% chance to activate once. Her 3-star uncap is a Vocal +50, and her memory appeal when maxed is a Vocal 1.5 appeal that links into a Visual 3.0 appeal. For the support recommendations, Visual has gotten a fair bit of permanent support that will allow you to make a build with relative comfort. The real shame is that a majority of it is not Hokura, but you do what you can. As for Vocal, it's a very standard build for Hokura at this point, with cards like Chiyoko and Juri being staples in the build. Kaho depends on the investment into stamina mastery, while cards like Amana and Mei still stand as great inclusions for most Vocal teams. As a center, Rinze earns a C-. Don't really worry about it. There's nothing too crazy happening here, so don't stress on raising this too much. It's not the worst, but Mixed attributes is always kind of rough because, again, building for it is kind of a pain. Maybe if you're using the new mono, that's something to consider, but not too worryable. As a unit, again, C-. Meh. As mentioned in the preamble, there are plenty of other Rinzai cards that do this Rinzai's job just fine, so just consider this an expansion to your Rinzai wardrobe. She is the Sleepy Sheep. And that will do it for the video today. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Next time we'll be talking about the upcoming limited banner kicking off the anniversary, which is going to be a new Produce SSR for Tenka, who is Vocal, and a new Support SSR for Koito, who is Dance. Not too surprised that Dance Nocchill is going to be getting more support, so let's look forward to that team when it arrives, as well as the possible finale to Vocal Alstroemeria for now. Till next time, I've been Cho. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day.